My name is ADETUNJI LAMIDI. I'm the Vice President and Divisional Head of Personal Banking at FCMB. And as a loyal Sigmite, joined Sigma Club in 1988 when I entered UI as an undergraduate student of English. And since then, I spent 4 years in the university and also spent the same 4 years in Sigma Club. And I held the position of Sigma Decorations Chairman, move on to become the Sigma Deputy Scribe, and I held that position for 2 consecutive years. The Deputy Scribe role also doubled as the Maintenance Committee Chairman. And during that period, I actually had a lot of new milestone achievements as a loyal Sigma. Currently, I'm the Secretary of the Old Sigmite Association, and more or less the coordinating, Old Sigmites that ensures that Old Sigmite body continues to thrive, continues to resonate and work with current Sigmite in school. Yeah, my experience, joining Sigma, kind of at least, I would say it was an idea that had come from a few experiences I'd had, while in A levels, because I did A levels before coming to UI. And I think that prepared me. I was matured before entering UI, having spent 2 years in Ile-Ife at Oyo State College of Arts and Science. And that kind of at least had shown me what university looked like because I'd visited OAU several times. So I think coming to UI, one of the things that actually more or less excited me was, the motto of Sigma Club. I saw a motto that says, "We stand for all that is pure." And I could see poster in Bello Hall then of different clubs. I think Alpha Sigma, the Alpha Club then. Then we have the likes of K Guides, and we have some other Inner Wheels. We are all kinds. And I was like, nothing really struck me like a club that stood for all that is pure. And I said I really wanted to be, and understand what this really entails. So when I was applying, my roommates were like, "You want to join Sigma? How many suits do you have? These are people that dress in suits. How are you going to cope?" And I said, "Well, I will navigate it somehow." So I had to write my application, submitted the application, and the rest was history. So, the one of the things that got me quite, dazed and shocked was the fact that I got to the venue of admission interview maybe at 10 a.m. I was not interviewed until like 11 p.m. and I stood there. And that was part of Sigma way of testing perseverance, determination, and staying the course. Because at the end of the day, all of these things are things that we're now getting to see as we are getting matured into corporate world. That you want to succeed in life, you must persevere, you must be determined, and you must be ready to actually stay the course in every task that you want to accomplish. Yeah, I think for me, it's lots of fun times, lots of uh, you know great memories, milestone achievement, like I mentioned earlier, while in Sigma Club. One that really came to my mind, very clearly for me was my first assignment, as a loyal Sigmite. I was a newbie that just joined the club, and the Sigma chief then just called upon me that I needed to go see one of our very, revered old chief Professor Imaku. And I was to go, discuss with him and also ensure that I, I get him to donate to Sigma Club. And I've never met, any old Sigma before prior to that time. And, Professor Imaku then as old chief, professor of O&G, obstetrics and gynecology in UI, was larger than life. And it was one old chief and old Sigmite that a lot of old Sigmite themselves revered, and even current Sigmite. And here I was, a younger, Sigmite just joining, was asked to go to his house in Bodija. And I was there, make sure I got there very early. And one of the things that actually more or less got him, very, impressed was the fact that I was quickly able to, identify who he was And I went with the intention of recognizing his profession that, Prof, we're very excited, to have you as an old chief that we all respected. And I've read about, some of the milestone achievements that you had in the field of obstetrics and gynecology. At least, we always look forward to drinking from your pool of wisdom. And I now went ahead to actually explain, Sigma activities for the year. So he got so excited, and I said, okay, we would like to at least contribute to our Sigma charity. And there and then, the man just picked up his checkbook and wrote a check of 1,000 naira. And you can imagine what 1,000 naira was in 1988. So I actually went back to UI with a lot of, joy and excitement, showing that at least, I went and I was able to come back with something. So those are some of the things that really, do inspired us, in school. The second one that I could also recall was one of the very tough times, in Sigma, where we believe that at least we stand for all that is possible. And as a Sigmite, nothing should actually deter us from achieving our goal. This was in my final year when we were trying to, I think, penultimate year, we were trying to add a, to organize, we organized Havana, and Havana was to come, a day, before. So, and there and then, Kollington Ayinla just sent us a message, from the Blues that he was no longer coming to perform at Havana, all because he heard that at least we were bringing Shina Peters. And this was the time when Shina Peters just released, the hit song Shinamania in the 90s then, and it was the rave of the moment. So Kollington Ayinla kind of at least, was like, why do we want to create competition? And the man felt sorry he was not going to perform. So the Sigma chief that afternoon just called on myself and my friend, the chief scribe during that year, Dr. Adeoye Martins. And the Sigma chief then was old chief Dr. Shola Adedutun. And he said, Loyalist Lamidi, I was his roommate then. He said, Loyalist Lamidi, you have to follow this man. That's the manager of Kollington Ayinla. Back to Lagos that same afternoon by 4 p.m. And make sure you go meet Kollington, and you must ensure Kollington performs tomorrow. We'd already printed posters everywhere across Nigeria. We were expecting everybody, the news was everywhere that at least we are going to have an Havana that will bring Kollington Ayinla, Shina Peters, Gerardo Pino, and maybe Danny Wilson. And now one of the main bands just said he was not going to perform. So we left Ibadan that afternoon with Kollington's manager, and we ended up at Sangwater. Then Kollington was staying at Gateway Hotel. It was a very, very tough journey because, having to travel at 4:30, we got to Kollington's hotel around 9:30 p.m. So we had to now start negotiating. That was where the power of negotiation came in as a loyal Sigmite, and the strong will that we all had to say that we will never say no or take no for an answer. So we were able to at least, sit with him. We spoke to him. We let him realize that, see, what we were trying to do was even a favor because we knew that Kollington had just lost his out to fire and he was just recuperating, and we didn't want to stress him. We said, okay, he was going to be the main performer, and at the end of the day, you rest, and then Shina Peters will come back to the podium and now perform. That none that we are really going to set them against each other. And at the end of the day, the man was excited and said, okay, Loyal Sigma, don't worry, I'm coming to perform because of your explanation. And that was it. We got back to UI then around 3 a.m., that the next day. We were so excited that we got to Iwo Road, myself and Loyal Adeoye Martins, and we trekked all the way from Iwo Road to UI in the middle of the night. We were never afraid. We never deterred. The fact that we were coming with success story, and we must relay that story back to the Sigma chief that same day. So that was the excitement of Sigma Club, and the fact that we were people that believe in possibility and not impossibility. Yeah, I think for me, Sigma Club is like a leadership school. And it's a club where you learn things ordinarily you can never get to learn, even in an MBA school, because it's a club that actually teaches discipline. It's a club that helps every young man to dream, to aspire, and to aim high. in life. When you look at generality of older Sigmites, you would have seen people who are achievers, people who actually more or less started with from nothing and they are somebody today. And those are the kind of things that actually distinguishes Sigma from others. One thing that's also very unique, was the fact that Sigma is a club that actually does not have constitution, and is a club that actually believes in ideals, traditions, and also things that were done in the past, and that continuously help the clubs to grow. And we kind of at least relinquish all powers into one man called the Sigma Chief. And for me, those are the things that ability for everybody to now give respect to that one person who's like an institution that we believe is the sole repository of wisdom and knowledge as a Sigma Chief. Those are the things that actually more or less stood us out from every other club. And when you look at it, a club that has been standing since 1950, first, the only student club surviving in Africa south of Sahara. We are just second to none, in the universe. And continuously, Sigma continues to be a bedrock of success, determination, perseverance, and a club where at least leaders are born, leaders are made, and leaders are developed. In fact, if I come back to this world, I will still come back to be a loyal Sigmite. I will still come back to join Sigma Club. And I'll do it better than now. Better in the sense that everything that I did when I was in school, I will make sure that I kind of do it double. I will make sure that events like Havana continue to thrive. One of the things that I actually pride myself in as part of my success story was reorganizing an Havana that chronicled what Havana was in 1970s and early 70s and up to about 75. We all read the story about Havana 72, where Fela performed and Fela sang Fogo Fogo Ebeni, Shishi Shishi Nigokan, and they were breaking bottles. And in that Havana alone, there was a lot of shattering of glasses, even up to the level of breaking, some of parts of the university trencher door. And within 24 hours, Sigma Corps was able to fix every of the window, even before the university authority get to know. Those are the invisibility of Sigma Club. And then we read then that at least in 1990, 1991, we said that we were going to replicate that Havana, where Fela was going to sing, and we are going to actually extend the venue beyond the four courts of Trenchard Hall. And what did we do? We decided that we met Fela, and we agreed that yes, we are going to bring Fela down to UI. And Fela gave us a design of the kind of stage that he wanted, a stage that would actually host about almost 42 band members standing and performing simultaneously with his retinue of ladies, with his band boys and instruments. The only stage that was available in Nigeria then was owned by Benson and Edges. And at that time, we couldn't even afford it. So all I did as maintenance committee chairman was to go to the works department in UI. And I went to meet those elderly carpenters and masonry and officers who had actually been in UI since the 70s. And I asked that singular question: sir, I'm looking for those carpenters that work with Sigma in 1972 when Fela came to play for Sigma Club. And they introduced me to two men. And those two men actually went into reminiscing. And they told me that yes, they were the one. So all I did was, lo and behold, I took them to SUB building and I bought them beer. And we sat down and we spoke. And they brought me a prototype of the design of the Havana stage that was used in 1972. And I went with them. We went to the sawmill and I bought planks. They gave me all the specification of what to do to actually reconstruct that stage. And that was exactly what I did. We constructed in the four walls of the front of Trader Hall and Mellanby, where opposite admission office. That was then. I think today you guys have like a garden there now, love garden. Now it was an open field. And we decided that that was where Fela was going to perform. And I was there with the carpenter for 2 weeks, constructing a stage on which Fela performed. And it was a stage that was unrivaled. You know, Fela came that night and said, wow, this was a fantastic stage. And I got lightning from the theater arts, from my friend then, Alfonso, who was a theater arts student, you know, and we lighted the whole place. It was a beauty to behold. So when I look back with nostalgia, it gives me goosebumps that yes, we had that determination and we were able to achieve it. And you see, this kind of inspiration and the daring attitude continue to stay with me. And these are some of the things that actually helped shape my life, to believe that anything I set my eyes upon, I must achieve it. And that for me was the power of Sigma Club. So any UITs who do not join a club like Sigma Club has actually lost the opportunity of achieving something great. Because for me, Sigma kind of gives opportunity to every young man to aspire, an opportunity to also learn, from others. And I would really want to encourage every male undergraduate to see Sigma Club as a school within school, where you can learn leadership, where you can learn the culture of excellence, where you can learn about principle, and where you can also learn about friendship. Because one thing that we've taken away from Sigma, we that are Old Sigma, is the fact that we have the opportunity to network and to make friends. And these are friends that are thicker than brothers. These are friends that for life, all through the journeys of life, they are with you. We stick much more, than anything with one another. The fact that you even left school and you have people to call on as your brothers, those are the things that at least, an average UI do not have today. And for me, it's something that I really want every loyal Sigmite to really cherish. And for non-Sigmite, if you have the opportunity, please do catch the bug of Sigma Club before you leave school. Me also, I think one question I would have loved you guys to ask me that you've not asked will be the fact that as a Sigmite, is it only work, or there are also opportunity for you to also unwind? And I'll say Sigma is a combination of both. You can enjoy your both world. You can work so hard in Sigma Club and you still find yourself even more or less, unwinding and enjoying yourself in social atmosphere. That's why we're a social philanthropic organization. And we enjoyed all our, Sigma, work, Sigma projects where we organize Havana, we organize Sigma Guest Luncheon, we go for meetings with Old Sigmites, and we organize Sigma Charity. And our informal parties are also sacrosanct. In a year, we make sure every quarter we must have a Sigma party, Sigma dance hall, where at least students bring their Sigma wives, and we go and have the informal party with DJs. And of course, we also now have, a Sigma members night, where all members come in suit and tie with their Sigma wives, Sigma friends, and even we invite principal members of the university to also understand at least the tenets of Sigma Club and what makes us tick as a club to be proud of. So it's a beautiful club to belong to. Thank you very much.